There is plenty to be thankful for. In 52 days, President Trump will be back in the White House, and he will start to correct this nightmare that we have been living for the last 4 years. One of those things he will help fix is the military, something close to my heart. The conversation about women in ground combat and why it has to be twisted into this totally unrealistic conversation by the left. President Trump's choice for Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth restarted this conversation with a resurfaced interview.
I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated. We've all served with women, and they're great. It just, our institutions don't have to incentivize that in places where traditionally, not traditionally, over human history, men in those positions are more capable.
And that led to more ridiculous conversations from the outraged, the media, who focused entirely on the wrong thing.
Don't lecture me about women in combat. Women have been in combat, and it doesn't matter if that 7.62 hits you in the chest. No one gives a if it's a woman or a guy who pulled that trigger. You're still dead.
I would ask him, you know, where do you think I lost my legs? In a bar fight? I'm pretty sure I was in combat when that happened. And you know, it just shows how out of touch he is with the nature of modern warfare if he thinks that we can keep women behind some sort of imaginary line, which is not the way warfare is, you know, today.
This isn't 1940. This isn't trench warfare where the men fight on the front and the women are nurses in the background. This is modern warfare. And I would suggest that anyone who thinks women shouldn't be serving in our military doesn't understand how we fight and is really unqualified to be the Secretary of Defense.
You know, they are missing the mark. This isn't about women's rights or women's equality. This is about life and death and national security. This is about women in ground combat not being able to perform at the same caliber needed to keep not only themselves safe, but their fellow soldiers safe as well. If you don't know me, I am Jessie Jane Duff. I am a retired gunnery sergeant. I served in the United States Marine Corps for 20 years. I support women in our military, and Pete Hegseth does too. But ground combat, we're talking the guys that go from cave to cave, is a different story. And there is a scientific evidence to back this up in multiple studies that have been done. And it is time to have a real conversation about it. Men and women are physically different. Men have a higher percentage of muscle mass, for example, than women, as much as 45%. And women have less than only 20%. They have 20% more lung capacity. So studies have been done on this, and they come back saying the same thing every single time. In 2015, President Obama ignored and overruled the Marine Corps study that told him women should not serve in ground combat. They characterized it as a lethal mistake. That was the United States Marine Corps. Why wouldn't we trust them? They did this study for 9 months out in 29 Palms, a desert warfare training center. I've been out there many times myself. And in this study, the researchers determined that the reported amount of evidence that they saw was no longer demonstrating that they were capable to perform. The integrated units were outperforming or underperforming next to the non-integrated units. And the percentage of ground combat tasks that were completed was only at 69% that they were able to complete. That means, though integrated units were only successful in 31% of the tasks, while non-integrated were successful at 69% of the tasks. When would we ever send an infantry unit out that's only 31% effective? Physical differences that are evident in these tests will undermine the survivability and the lethality in war, the two paramount factors that the Marines identified in their report. When we're comparing women to men, the integrated units succinctly demonstrated that they were not capable of keeping up with the non-integrated units. Rates of injury known to be double and even higher in the infantry and other combat arms units are the unequal price that women will have to pay. That means every time there's an injury by the women, they have to be replaced. And if they are having almost double the rate of injuries, can we afford to continue to replace them? Injury rates among women were 2 to 6 times greater than men's, and even higher injury rates in load-bearing infantry units, which would seriously detract from the mission readiness. We have one job in the military. It's to overwhelm and destroy the enemy. These gender-neutral tests for ground combat of upper body strength, stamina, and running and speed, 86% of the women failed compared to 3% of the men. So how is this even a logical conclusion to come to? It's not about equality. The extensive tests for the United States Marine Corps from 2012 to 2015 produced definitive findings that can be summarized in one sentence. In the infantry and other direct ground combat units that attack the enemy with deliberate offensive action, women do not have an equal opportunity to survive or help fellow soldiers to survive. Putting women in ground combat is like putting one in an MMA match against a man. Even the best female athlete could not compete. In fact, we would never want to see women get plummeted in a mixed martial arts cage with a man. Serena Williams, one of the best female athletes in the world, says she couldn't compete with men. Take a listen.
For me, tennis and men's tennis and women's tennis are completely almost two separate sports. So I'm like, if I were to play Andy Murray, I would lose 6-0, 6-0 in 5 to 6 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because no, it's true. It's true. It's a completely different sport. The men are a lot faster, and they serve harder, they hit harder. It's just a different game.
So we don't want our girls competing against biological boys in high school. So why would we want them to compete with men in the most violent job in the world? I mean, the left is always promoting this violence against women is something we shouldn't be doing, but yet they want us to put them in the most violent job in the world. All of this matters. It involves life and death and national security, and it needs to be a conversation we take seriously. Flawed gender equality theories and misinformation have blurred the harsh realities of the brutal, physically exhausting nature of direct ground combat against ruthless adversaries, that it is not going to be treated equal or fair to anyone. Keep in mind, ISIS often fights on methamphetamines. Women can't even equally defend themselves in that environment. Women do not belong in ground combat, and our military will be stronger for it.